That's not the full. I do know better, and I will tell you that was done by a Russian lab who had an interest in disqualifying her because it jeopardized the undefeated record of a Russian boxer. It's just, that's all they have, and it's totally debunked. Piers, I thought you were better than this.
It's not debunked, and you'll regret.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video. David Pakman and a couple of other woke idiots went on Piers Morgan Uncensored. And in this clip, Piers Morgan absolutely demolishes David Pakman and just the woke cult in general. It's rare that Piers Morgan has to go in on one of these woke people, especially when you have people like Kevin O'Leary and Brandon Tatum on the panel. But Piers Morgan couldn't help himself whenever David Pakman is saying the ridiculous and dangerously woke things that David Pakman was saying. Let's get into this clip here from Piers Morgan Uncensored of David Pakman getting absolutely demolished by Piers Morgan himself.
Hate Trump with a pathological violence. But they went out and spoke to people in the street, and this happened.
Trump talks about this a lot. He says, you know, Kamala Harris became black when it was convenient.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about, do you agree with him on that? Do you feel like she's wearing her blackness?
Absolutely. She's sworn into when she swore into the Senate, it was as the first Indian American.
Thank you.
Which is, it's fine. We don't care.
We all know she's not black. Let's understand that. We are all clear of that. But my point of view is, like I told you earlier, she's already been there. She's in office right now.
I mean, David, that's pretty devastating when you hear that for Kamala Harris, isn't it? They all think she's a bit of a phony who's basically using them as a community.
Those two people did say that, but if you look at any public opinion survey, this is not ranking anywhere, and there still seems to be confusion about the concept of being biracial. But no, I don't think that's really devastating at all. And in fact, I think that I don't know what interviews Brandon's been watching, but she just did an interview yesterday with NBC where she was almost goaded by the interviewer. Why aren't you talking about being a woman and being black? And she said, people can tell what my identity is. I'm running on policy, and then people can judge the identity however they want. She's stepped away from identity politics, which I think is fantastic, by the way.
David, let me ask you this.
Politics as a cudgel.
David, let me ask you this. One of the things she stands for, along with Joe Biden, is she has done nothing while they've been in office to stem this, in my view, horrendously unfair situation of trans athletes competing in women's sport. And an astonishing survey has just come out today by the United Nations that reveals that female athletes have lost 900 medals to transgender rivals competing against them in women's sporting categories. This is a UN report. That's 600 female athletes in more than 400 competitions have lost nearly 900 medals in 29 different sports. When the average American sees that both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris now support this unfairness, and that's what it is. It's just unfair. It's nothing to do with being transphobic or anything else. It's just unfair. And when it's supported by a report like that from the UN, that's one of her problems too, is that people think they're supporting the indefensible. They lack basic common sense. What do you say to that?
I'm struggling to think that you're taking this any more seriously than as something that might generate clicks on YouTube, Piers.
Wow, you don't think that's serious?
Hold on, Piers, I can't even get a sentence out.
What, you don't think it's serious?
Hold on a second. The vast majority of those instances in the UN report are outside the United States and have nothing to do with the president or vice president of the United States at its face. And secondly, I would challenge you to tell me the quotes that Biden or Harris have put forward wherein they have weighed in on how sports leagues should be handling these decisions. But 92% of that study is not even in the U.S. So I don't even know why you're bringing this up other than
what's
to
that got to do with the
principle
of the principle?
I'm sorry?
What's that got to do with the principle?
Well, the principle is you're saying Kamala Harris and Biden have come out in support of this.
They do. They support policies which act.
Dude, this is so bad faith. They might have not. David Pakman is saying that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden haven't specifically come out in favor of trans women competing in women's sports. But come on, man. Like, that's such a bad faith argument. Maybe Kamala Harris hasn't explicitly said, I support trans women being in women's sports. But I guarantee you, if you ask her, I mean, she might just answer by saying, I'm not Donald Trump, like she does with every other question. But if you actually nailed got her to actually answer a question for once, she would definitely say she supports it. I mean, look at the other things that she supports around that issue. She's big on like the funding for trans inmates to get gender affirming surgery. Like, obviously they are for those things. Like, that's such a bad faith way to go about this argument from David Pakman. And that's when you know somebody like him is absolutely cornered. Let's see what Piers Morgan has to say in response here.
They support policies that protect transgender athletes performing in women's sport. And I think that is madness. You're saying, well, because most of these things in this UN report were outside of America, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
What I'm saying, it's a completely contrived issue that almost no one cares about in every single opinion poll.
Wow. You see, I think that's incredibly deluded. People do care about it. They care about the integrity of women's sport.
It just doesn't show up in any opinion poll as a primary issue. Not top 10, not top 20.
Out of interest, do you think...
They care about it, but it doesn't show up in a single poll.
What's your view? Do you think it's fair?
I think that it depends on the sport, and I think we need to talk about this for probably 90 minutes to really have a productive conversation.
Really? So when you saw the Paris Olympics and you saw 2 gold medal winners in women's boxing who actually were born with biological male chromosomes, you think that's right?
That is not the truth as far as I understand it.
Really?
I don't know who you're talking about. If you can name them, then maybe we can get into more detail.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. It was well publicized.
Well, tell me. Tell me who you're talking about.
I can't remember their exact names. There were 2 gold medal winners. Well, I can find them now if it helps you. I don't know why the names matter.
The one who was the source of a lot of viral articles was born a woman, always lived as a woman, always competed as a woman. I'm sorry?
What was her name?
Imani something.
All right, so you don't know either. So don't be quite so patronizing if you don't know either. But the truth is...
Well, you're bringing it up, Piers. See, here's the thing. Hold on a second, Piers. Hold on a second. You do this all the time, Piers. You bring something up. And then you evaluate your guest's opinion as to how much it matters. You brought it up. If it doesn't actually matter, don't bring it up.
No, just to be clear, you were haranguing me for not remembering the name. I said the name's irrelevant. What's relevant is whether the gold medal winners have biological male chromosomes when they're getting into a boxing ring
they do not.
And punching women in the face so hard that one of the women competitors, a female, quit after 45 seconds.
Yes,
because she'd never been hit that hard.
There is nothing to the story that the boxer that prevailed was ever a man.
Wow.
Just nothing.
And yet you know that
there's no evidence of it. It was a viral right-wing story based on nothing.
Hang on, you know that boxer was banned from the World Championships precisely because there is evidence. You know that, right?
Yes. Do you know the details of that, Piers? Do you know? Tell the full story. Go ahead, tell the full story.
That boxer was banned, along with the other one, from the World Championships because it has been reported that they tested positive for male chromosomes, right? If you know better, tell me.
That's not the full. I do know better, and I will tell you. That was done by a Russian lab who had an interest in disqualifying her because it jeopardized the undefeated record of a Russian boxer. It's just, that's all they have, and it's totally debunked. Piers, I thought you were better than this.
It's not debunked, and you'll regret.
I just don't understand the David Pakman stance of like, Piers, I thought you were better than this. Like, I'm so much more morally above you. It's like, dude, in every single sport on earth, I mean, honestly, it's ironic, but it's more men's sports that do this. But if you get caught taking testosterone, you get banned / suspended from the sport for a certain amount of time. Whenever a field goal kicker in the NFL kicks a long field goal, breaks a record, they get quote unquote random drug tests the next day. What do you think they're testing for? They're testing for testosterone most of the time. Performance-enhancing drugs. The most performance-enhancing drug you could possibly take, other than like cocaine or something, would be testosterone. That's why all of the bodybuilders and everything, they take testosterone, you know? And it's just wild how that's perfectly fine. That's not transphobic or anything like that. That's not sexist against men or anything. But whenever somebody has a crazy amount of natural testosterone versus, you know, in comparison to the people that they are competing against, and it's unnatural for them to be competing in that. It's not natural for you to change your natural sex. It's not natural. So it's unnatural for them to be competing against them. It's a problem whenever people say, like Piers Morgan is saying, that they shouldn't be competing against each other. It doesn't make any sense. If you ask David Pakman, should a baseball player be able to inject himself with just crazy amounts of testosterone? and just still compete? Like, do you have a massive, like, do you feel a moral obligation to, you know, push for baseball players being able to take massive amounts of testosterone? He would say no. He doesn't care that much. Honestly, I think they should just be able to take tests. I think it'd be fun to watch, but it is what it is. When it comes to like football or combat sports or, you know, contact sports in general, I think it's probably a no. You shouldn't be able to take that stuff. But when it comes to baseball, just let them take it, man. It's much more entertaining whenever people are gigantic. So, just, you know, we need more Barry Bonds out there. But anyway, that's off topic. I don't think David Pakman would care very much. But whenever you talk about someone who has this natural performance enhancing drug within them competing against women who do not have that natural performance enhancing drug, that's a problem. That's dangerous. And I don't understand how David Pakman can act like it's not and act like he has the moral high ground whenever people like Piers Morgan are trying to protect natural women.
Saying that because it's true. Let me go to Kevin. Kevin, I have a common sense test with this stuff. One of the things Trump is very good at, his instincts are very commonsensical. You can hate some of the rhetoric, and I do when he goes off sometimes at people. But what you can't deny is instincts for what average Americans are thinking. Normally pretty spot on. And he said recently, I think last week, he would ban all trans athletes from women's sport. Do you think it matters or not?
You know, I actually enjoyed that narrative you two just had, and I have a solution that I think you'll both agree with, and I think we could settle this issue forever. Globally,
I know what it's going to be.
We know almost 40 years ago that we started testing for doping, for example, and we exclude cyclists in Olympics that are doping, and we found other drugs that we exclude, tested by Olympic testers. So why don't we just settle this and create the transgender Olympics? So if you started in one gender and you switch to another, you join this third category and you go at it. And I think everybody would agree with that. And I think it'd make it very easy, and it's tested by DNA, and that would be it. Because I also agree it's kind of unfair if you take a man and change him into a woman using today's technology and he pounds the crap out of somebody in a boxing ring, or she does. That's not fair. It just doesn't make common sense. And that goes through to this thing you're talking about with Trump. He's authentic. You know, I had this narrative with my daughter yesterday in New York, and we really were heated. And I said, do you agree that he has no filter? He just puts out what's on his mind, and you know with certainty that's what's on his mind. And she said, that I agree with. He has no filter, and he's authentic. Now, if you don't like that, don't.
We're going to cut it off there. I just wanted to focus on the David Pakman versus Piers Morgan stuff. Let me know in the comments, who do you think won that debate? I personally think that David Pakman was being very bad faith when it came to that argument, but I'm curious to see what you guys have to say in the comments. What do you think about this whole David Pakman going on Piers Morgan Uncensored and Piers Morgan blowing up on him for the ridiculous statements that he was making?